My ex left me at the altar and said, "Your best friend deserves the ring I bought for you," after Amanda walked into the church wearing white, carrying prints of messages where I supposedly said I was cheating on him with my boss. The sanctuary of St. Mary's Catholic Church fell into shocked silence as my former best friend of 8 years strutted down the aisle in a white mermaid gown, her smile triumphant as she handed Jason Mitchell, my fiancé, a manila folder. 300 guests watched in horror as he connected his laptop to the church's projector system, his cybersecurity engineer hands shaking as he pulled up screenshot after screenshot of Instagram messages, each one allegedly from my account, detailing explicit encounters with my boss Richard at TechFlow Solutions. The massive screen above the altar displayed conversations with times and dates of when I would supposedly be working late, complete with heart emojis and graphic descriptions that made my elderly grandmother gasp and clutch her rosary. Amanda stood beside Jason now, her hand possessively on his arm as he scrolled through message after message, his voice breaking as he read aloud. "Meeting Richard at the office again tonight. The thrill of almost getting caught makes it so much better." The timestamp showed Monday, May 20th, 9:15 p.m. My mother, skeletal and weak in her wheelchair, from 4 months of brutal chemotherapy for stage 3 breast cancer, made a wounded sound that cut through the murmuring crowd. That was the night I had slept on the uncomfortable chair beside her hospital bed at OHSU, because her white blood cell count had dropped dangerously low and the doctors feared sepsis. I had held her hand through violent waves of nausea, wiping her mouth with damp cloths, not eating or sleeping for 36 hours straight until the crisis passed. But then my brain, trained by years of managing complex marketing campaigns and obsessive attention to detail, clicked into hyper-focus mode. Amanda had slept over at my downtown Portland apartment exactly 6 days ago, on Sunday night, because she claimed her roommates were having a loud party, and she needed peace to work on a design project. I had given her the spare key 2 years ago, back when she was truly my best friend, and not whatever monster now stood in a white dress stealing my life. On Monday morning, I had left for work early, leaving her alone in my apartment with my laptop sitting open on my kitchen table, because I trusted her completely. The Instagram messages Jason was displaying had been sent between 9 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. that Monday, perfectly timed to when Amanda would have had complete access to my logged-in accounts. My hands were steady as I pulled my iPhone from my clutch purse, the screen unlocking to reveal my actual Instagram. I walked down the aisle in my $2,500 Vera Wang gown, my heels clicking loudly on the marble floor in the dead silence. And I smiled. Not a nervous smile or a desperate smile, but the calm, cold smile of someone who had just realized their enemy had made a fatal mistake. Jason's face went from righteous anger to confusion as I stopped 3 feet from him and Amanda, close enough that the projector caught my phone screen as I held it up. "That's interesting evidence, Amanda," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the church's sound system since the microphone was still on for the ceremony. Especially considering these messages were all sent from my apartment on Monday morning while I was at work. You know, the apartment where you slept over Sunday night? The apartment where you were alone with my laptop for over 2 hours? I pulled up my settings, navigating to linked devices and login history with practiced ease. See this? Instagram logged in on MacBook Pro, Victoria's laptop, at 8:53 a.m. Monday. Activity continued until 11:47 a.m. Every single one of those screenshots you're showing, created during that exact window. Amanda's perfectly made-up face went pale under her bronzer. Jason's cybersecurity expertise was apparently useless when his emotions overrode his technical training, but now I watched his engineer brain start to process the information. I wasn't done. I switched to my Ring app, the doorbell camera I had installed 3 weeks ago when there had been a break-in 2 floors down in my building. Amanda didn't know about the Ring camera because I had installed it after her last visit, and I had deliberately not mentioned it during her Sunday sleepover because I had been too busy comforting her through her latest dating disaster. "Here's the fun part," I continued, turning my phone so the projection showed the Ring footage. Security camera from my apartment door. Timestamp. Sunday, June 2nd, 7:43 p.m. Amanda enters with the spare key I gave her. Monday, June 3rd, 8:15 a.m., I leave for work. I fast-forwarded through the footage. 8:17 a.m., apartment door closes. Amanda is alone inside. 11:52 a.m., Amanda exits carrying her overnight bag and my spare laptop charger, which I noticed was missing later but assumed I had misplaced it. The church erupted in gasps and furious whispers. My father, a retired police detective, stood up from the front pew, his face dark with rage. Jason's hands had gone limp on his laptop keyboard, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to process what he was seeing. But Amanda, cornered and desperate, made her second fatal mistake. She lunged for my phone, trying to snatch it away, and in doing so knocked over the decorative flower arrangement beside the altar, white roses and lilies scattering across the marble steps as she screamed, "She's lying! She's manipulating everything! Jason, please, I did this for us, for us." The words hung in the air like a confession. My mother wheeled herself forward, her voice weak but clear. "My daughter was with me at the hospital on every single one of those dates and times. I have the visitor logs, the nurse station records, the parking garage timestamps from her car. She never left my side except to use the bathroom or get coffee from the cafeteria." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands, holding up a photo of me beside her hospital bed, my hair in a messy bun, wearing scrubs I had borrowed from a nurse because my clothes had gotten soiled when Mom had gotten sick. The timestamp in the corner read May 20th, 9:47 p.m. I took one step closer to Jason, and he flinched. "You proposed to me with an $8,000 ring," I said softly. "You planned this entire wedding with me. You met my mother during her worst days, held her hand, promised you would take care of me. And you believed doctored screenshots over 2 years of me showing you every day who I really am." I turned to Amanda, my former best friend who had shared my secrets, my fears, my joys for 8 years. "You slept in my home, ate my food, cried on my shoulder about your failed relationships, and you used the access I gave you to destroy my life. All for a man who wasn't even yours to take." Jason's hands were shaking as he opened his laptop's system logs, his professional training finally overriding his emotional blindness. I knew what he was seeing because I had spent my entire career managing data and details. The metadata would show everything, the exact timestamps of when the Instagram messages were created, not sent. The IP address would trace back to my apartment's Wi-Fi network. The device fingerprint would match my laptop, not my phone, which had been with me at TechFlow's Monday morning marketing strategy meeting with 14 witnesses. Amanda was crying now, mascara streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage that her perfect plan had been exposed. She had spent months setting this up, I realized. The recent friendship distance I had attributed to my mother's illness, Amanda had used to get closer to Jason. The concerned texts asking if I was okay, if Jason and I were having problems, if I needed to talk. She had been grooming him, planting seeds of doubt, positioning herself as the caring friend while painting me as distant and suspicious. "I loved him first," Amanda shrieked, her composure completely shattered now. "I introduced myself to him at that tech conference 2 years ago, and then you showed up and he couldn't see anyone else. You don't even appreciate him. You've been so distant lately, always with your mother, always tired, never available. I would have been perfect for him." The congregation was dead silent. Jason looked between us, his face a mixture of horror and realization. My 4 bridesmaids, standing frozen in their dusty rose gowns, stared at Amanda with expressions of disgust. My matron of honor, Jessica, my college roommate, stepped forward and ripped the manila folder from Amanda's hands, flipping through the doctored screenshots with her paralegal expertise. "These are fake," she announced loudly. "The font is wrong. Instagram uses Helvetica Neue for its interface, but these messages use Helvetica Regular. The margins are off by 3 pixels. The metadata in the EXIF data of these printed images will show they were created in Photoshop, not captured from an actual phone screen." I hadn't even noticed those details, but Jessica was absolutely right. Amanda had been so focused on creating believable content that she had made amateur design mistakes that any professional would catch. The irony that she called herself a graphic designer while making such fundamental errors would have been funny if my entire wedding wasn't currently imploding. My father had his phone out now, already calling someone. I heard him say digital forensics and fraud charges, and watched Amanda's face go from rage to genuine fear. Creating false evidence and presenting it publicly wasn't just morally wrong, it was potentially criminal. My father had connections at the Portland Police Bureau's cybercrime unit from his detective days. This wasn't going to just ruin her reputation. This was going to ruin her life. Jason finally spoke, his voice barely audible. "Tori, I don't." But I held up my hand, cutting him off. I wasn't interested in his shock or his apologies or his attempts to process what had just happened. He had chosen to believe the worst about me without a single conversation, without checking facts, without trusting the woman he claimed to love enough to marry. A man who worked in cybersecurity, whose entire career was based on verifying information and identifying threats, had been so easily manipulated that he had humiliated me in front of 300 people on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. "Keep the ring," I said to Jason, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my system. "Give it to Amanda like you planned. She clearly wants it more than I ever did." I turned to face the congregation, all these people who had witnessed my public humiliation, and now my equally public vindication. "There won't be a wedding today, obviously. The reception venue has been paid for, the food and bar are ready. You're all welcome to attend and celebrate the fact that I just dodged the biggest mistake of my life. My bridesmaids will give you the updated address." I walked back down the aisle alone, still in my wedding gown, carrying my phone with all its damning evidence, leaving behind a shell-shocked former fiancé, a sobbing former best friend, and 300 witnesses who would never forget what they had just seen. My mother wheeled after me, my father close behind, and as we exited St. Mary's Catholic Church into the bright June sunshine, I felt something unexpected. Not heartbreak, but fury. Cold, calculating fury that demanded something more than just exposing Amanda's lies in the moment. She had tried to destroy me methodically, with planning and premeditation and malicious intent. The white dress hadn't been a spontaneous choice. She had purchased it, altered it, prepared this entire performance. She had studied my life closely enough to know my schedule, to fabricate believable scenarios, to exploit my mother's illness as cover for her schemes. And Jason, the man who had promised to love and cherish me, had been so easily turned against me that he had planned this public execution without a single shred of real evidence. The reception venue, an upscale waterfront space overlooking the Willamette River, became an impromptu celebration of my narrow escape rather than a wedding. 270 guests actually showed up, choosing to support me rather than slink away in embarrassment. The DJ, after a quick consultation with Jessica, changed the playlist from romantic ballads to empowerment anthems. My bridesmaids moved through the crowd distributing drinks and explaining what had really happened for those who had arrived late or missed the church drama. The whiskey sour in my hand was my third, but I remained clear-headed despite the alcohol, my mind already calculating my next moves. My phone buzzed constantly. Jason had sent 47 text messages in 2 hours, each one more desperate than the last, ranging from shocked apologies to attempts at explanation to finally begging me to answer. I blocked his number after reading the last one. "Tori, please. I was protecting us from what I thought was betrayal. Amanda showed me so much evidence over weeks. She said she was worried about you." So it hadn't just been today's dramatic reveal. Amanda had been poisoning him against me systematically, building a case gradually so his trust would erode slowly enough that he wouldn't question the manipulation. What interested me more was the information my father brought an hour into the reception. He sat beside me at the head table, still in his formal suit, and slid a folder across the white tablecloth. "Called in a favor from Lieutenant Harris in cybercrime," he said quietly, his retired detective instincts in full force. "Had them run a preliminary analysis on your laptop remotely with the access credentials you provided. Amanda didn't just create fake Instagram messages. She installed keylogger software on your computer 3 months ago, probably during one of her earlier sleepovers. She's been monitoring everything you type, every password, every private conversation." Ice flooded my veins. 3 months ago was March, right when my mother's cancer diagnosis had come back as stage 3 instead of the stage 1 we had hoped for. Amanda had come over that night with wine and comfort food, had stayed late talking me through my terror, had offered to help with anything I needed. I had been grateful for her friendship, had left her alone in my apartment multiple times over the following weeks, while I dealt with hospital visits and treatment consultations. She had used my vulnerability as an access point. "There's more," my father continued, his voice hardening. "The keylogger data shows she accessed your bank account information, your work email, your medical records portal. She's been building a complete profile of your life. We found draft documents on a cloud storage account linked to her IP address. Essentially a dossier on you with notes about your schedule, your relationships, your passwords." This wasn't just about Jason. This was obsessive surveillance. Jessica appeared on my other side, her paralegal mind already working through implications. That's computer fraud and abuse, identity theft, invasion of privacy. Oregon's identity theft statute covers unauthorized access to personal information with intent to harm. The Federal Computer Fraud and Abuse Act applies because she accessed your work email, which means she compromised TechFlow Solutions systems. your company could pursue corporate espionage charges. She pulled out her tablet, already pulling up statutes and precedents, plus the defamation from today's church incident. Fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Tori, you could bury her in civil and criminal liability. My mother wheeled over, color slowly returning to her pale cheeks as the shock wore off. Despite her illness, her mind remained sharp. That girl always had jealousy in her eyes when she looked at you, she said, her voice weak but certain. I told your father 6 months ago that something felt off about Amanda. The way she asked too many questions about your relationship with Jason, about your job, about our family. I thought I was being paranoid from the cancer brain fog, but instinct doesn't lie. The pieces assembled themselves in my mind with crystal clarity. Amanda hadn't suddenly snapped and decided to destroy my wedding. This had been a long-term operation, meticulously planned and executed over months. The recent emotional distance I had interpreted as her giving me space during my family crisis had actually been her pulling away to finalize her scheme. The sympathetic texts asking if Jason and I were okay had been reconnaissance, gathering information to use against me. Every vulnerable moment I had shared with her about struggling to balance my mother's care with wedding planning and work demands had been ammunition she stockpiled for this exact attack. I want to press every possible charge, I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning through my chest. Criminal and civil. I want her prosecuted to the fullest extent, and I want her to know that I'm the one who made it happen. My father smiled grimly. Lieutenant Harris is already working with the DA's office. The evidence is overwhelming. She'll be arrested within 48 hours once they complete the forensic analysis. The keylogger software alone is a federal crime. He paused, studying my face. But I know that look, Victoria. You're planning something beyond the legal system. He was right. The law would punish Amanda, certainly, but legal consequences were abstract and slow. Court dates and probation and fines didn't satisfy the primal need for justice that burned in my gut. She had tried to destroy me on what should have been the best day of my life, in front of everyone I loved, using my dying mother's illness as cover for her schemes. Legal justice wasn't enough. I needed her to feel the same powerlessness and humiliation she had tried to inflict on me. A text notification lit up my phone, this time from an unknown number. Tori, it's Jason. Please don't do this to Amanda. She's devastated and scared. She made a terrible mistake, but she doesn't deserve to have her whole life destroyed. We can work this out as adults. I stared at the message in disbelief. Even now, even after being exposed as a liar and manipulator, Amanda had somehow positioned herself as the victim needing his protection. Even now, Jason was advocating for her instead of grasping the magnitude of what she had done. I forwarded the message to my father and Jessica. He's trying to get me to drop charges, I said flatly. He's defending her. Jessica's expression turned predatory. That's evidence of witness tampering if he's acting at her direction, which we could easily argue given their connection. Save every message. Document everything. She looked at me with concern, softening her lawyer face. Are you sure you want to do this? Once you start legal proceedings, it becomes public record. Everyone will know the details. Everyone already knows the details, I pointed out. 300 people watched it happen in real time. The story is probably all over social media already. I pulled up Instagram and confirmed my suspicion. The hashtag Judge Mary's wedding drama was trending locally, with dozens of guests posting their shocked reactions and video clips. Someone had live-streamed the entire confrontation. Amanda's carefully planned destruction of my reputation had backfired spectacularly into her own very public exposure as a fraud and manipulator. My boss Richard called, having seen the social media explosion. Tori, I'm so sorry about what happened. Take all the time you need. Also, our legal team wants to discuss the unauthorized access to your work email. If she accessed confidential client information or company data, TechFlow will pursue charges independently. His voice was kind but firm. Nobody messes with our employees like this. By midnight, sitting in my childhood bedroom still wearing my Vera Wang gown because I couldn't bear to take it off yet, I had assembled my plan. The legal system would handle the criminal aspects. My company would address the corporate security breach. But there was a third dimension to Amanda's vulnerability that nobody else had identified yet, one that required inside knowledge of her life that only a former best friend would have. For 8 years, I had been her confidant, her support system, her keeper of secrets. I knew things about Amanda that could unravel her entire carefully constructed life. And unlike her fake Instagram messages, everything I knew was completely, verifiably true. The criminal complaint against Amanda was filed Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, she had been arrested at her apartment and charged with 5 felonies, computer fraud, identity theft, unauthorized access to protected computers, fraud by wire, and aggravated identity theft. The bail was set at $75,000. According to my father's contacts, she had sat in the holding cell crying and calling for Jason to help her, but Jason's phone had gone straight to voicemail. He had apparently taken emergency leave from his cybersecurity job, his professional reputation now tainted by association with someone who had committed the exact crimes he was supposed to prevent. I spent Tuesday recovering from my emotional hangover and methodically documenting every instance where Amanda had betrayed my trust over the past 8 years. Not dramatic betrayals, but small cruelties and manipulations I had overlooked because I valued our friendship. The time she had accidentally forwarded my venting text about a difficult coworker to that exact coworker, destroying a professional relationship. The time she had encouraged me to confront a previous boyfriend about cheating suspicions that turned out to be completely fabricated, ending that relationship. The time she had borrowed my designer jacket for a job interview and returned it with an unexplained stain and rip, dismissing my frustration as materialism. A pattern emerged. Amanda subtly sabotaged my happiness whenever something good happened in my life. Wednesday morning brought an unexpected visitor to my parents' house where I was staying. Jessica called up to my room. "Tori, Jason is here. He wants to talk. Your father is ready to physically remove him if needed, but wanted to check with you first." I came downstairs in yoga pants and one of my father's police academy sweatshirts. No makeup, my hair in a messy bun. Jason stood in the foyer looking like he hadn't slept, his usual meticulous appearance replaced by wrinkled clothes and defeated posture. My father loomed behind him, arms crossed, radiating protective menace. My mother sat in her wheelchair nearby, her expression icy. "You have 5 minutes," I said, remaining on the stairs above him, the physical position giving me psychological advantage. "Then my father escorts you out." Jason's words tumbled out desperately. "Tori, I know I destroyed everything. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but Amanda is being charged with serious crimes, and I think there's been a misunderstanding about her intentions. She loved me, and she made terrible choices because of that love, but destroying her life won't bring back what we had." He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "She's talking about suicide, Tori. She's completely broken. Please, show mercy." "Mercy," I repeated, the word tasting bitter. "You want me to show mercy to someone who spent 3 months installing spyware on my computer, monitoring my every keystroke, building a dossier on my private life, fabricating evidence of infidelity, and then staging a public humiliation designed to destroy my reputation on my wedding day while my mother was dying of cancer?" I descended 2 steps, my voice hardening. "Let me be very clear, Jason. Amanda didn't make these choices because she loved you. She made them because she's a narcissist who couldn't stand that I had something she wanted. Love doesn't involve identity theft and fraud. She's sick, Tori. She needs help, not prison. She's a criminal," my father interjected. "Mental health doesn't excuse breaking the law. She had 3 months to stop herself at any point. She chose this path deliberately." Jason turned to him desperately. "Sir, you understand justice? You were a detective. Doesn't rehabilitation matter? Doesn't she deserve a chance to get help and make amends?" My father's laugh was sharp and humorless. "I investigated crimes for 32 years. You know what I learned? Real remorse shows up before someone gets caught, not after. Amanda isn't sorry she hurt your daughter. She's sorry she got caught and is facing consequences." I came down the rest of the stairs until I stood directly in front of Jason. "Did Amanda send you here to convince me to drop charges?" His silence was confirmation enough. I pulled out my phone and texted my father's police contact, Jason Mitchell, acting as intermediary for Amanda Walsh to pressure victim to drop charges. "Witness tampering?" The response came within seconds. "Document everything. Could add obstruction charges." "Get out," I said quietly. "You chose her over me without evidence. You humiliated me publicly without conversation. You destroyed 2 years of our relationship in 2 minutes based on doctored screenshots. And now you're advocating for my abuser while she faces justice. You're blocked from my phone, my email, my social media. If you contact me again, I'll pursue a restraining order. If you contact my family, my father will file harassment charges using his very extensive police connections." "I loved you," Jason whispered, tears starting down his face. "No, you didn't," I replied. "You loved the idea of me. The real me. The one who sat by her dying mother's bedside and held her hand through chemotherapy. The one who worked 60-hour weeks to prepare for a promotion while planning a wedding? The one who would have trusted you unconditionally if positions were reversed. You never actually saw her at all. My father physically guided Jason to the door, his grip firm on the younger man's elbow. "My daughter is stronger than you deserved," he said as he pushed Jason onto the porch. "Consider yourself lucky she's only pursuing legal justice instead of the things I used to see victims' families do when the system failed them." After Jason left, I stood in my parents' living room feeling cold victory instead of satisfaction. Amanda's arrest and Jason's pathetic advocacy had confirmed everything I needed to know. They were both too self-absorbed to truly grasp what they had done. Legal consequences would punish Amanda's actions, but they wouldn't teach her the deeper lesson about consequences and karma. That afternoon, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Brianna Hutchins, Amanda's supervisor at the design agency where she worked. Brianna and I had met at several work events where Amanda had brought me along, and we had discovered we both served on the board of a local arts nonprofit. "Brianna, this is Tori Hayes. I need to tell you something about Amanda Walsh that affects your company's liability and reputation." I explained the keylogger, the data theft, the fabricated evidence, the criminal charges. I sent her the police report, the forensic analysis, and documentation showing Amanda had likely used company equipment to create the doctored Instagram screenshots based on metadata from the images. Brianna's response was immediate and professional. "She's fired. Effective immediately. We'll be cooperating fully with law enforcement and conducting an internal audit of all her work to ensure she didn't compromise client data. Thank you for telling me before this became a bigger scandal." The second call was to Marcus Chen, Amanda's landlord. Marcus and I had become friendly when I helped Amanda move into her apartment 2 years ago, and he had occasionally asked my marketing advice for his property management business. "Marcus, you should know your tenant Amanda Walsh was arrested yesterday on felony fraud and identity theft charges. She may have difficulty making rent while dealing with legal fees and job loss. Just wanted to give you a heads up as a courtesy." Marcus sighed heavily. "She's already 2 months behind on rent. I was giving her leniency because she claimed financial hardship, but if she's dealing with criminal charges, I need to start eviction proceedings to protect my property. Thanks for letting me know, Tori." The third call was the most calculated. I reached out to Dylan Rodriguez, Amanda's ex-boyfriend from 2 years ago, someone she had dated for 6 months before their messy breakup. Amanda had painted Dylan as emotionally abusive and controlling, and I had supported her through that narrative. But now, with perspective, I wondered if her version had been entirely accurate. "Dylan, this is Tori Hayes, Amanda's friend. I'm calling because some things have come to light that made me question what really happened between you two." Dylan was cautious at first, but when I explained what Amanda had done to me, his response was bitter validation. "She did something similar to me. When I broke up with her because she was too possessive and jealous, she created fake Tinder profiles using my photos and sent matches to my employer claiming I was harassing women online. I almost lost my job. I could never prove it was her, but I knew. She's dangerous when she doesn't get what she wants." After documenting Dylan's statement with his permission, I had a pattern of behavior spanning years. Amanda didn't just make one terrible mistake in a moment of passion. She had a history of calculated revenge against people who rejected her or succeeded where she failed. This wasn't mental illness requiring compassion. This was a personality disorder characterized by manipulation, entitlement, and vindictive retaliation. Thursday morning, I received a notification that Amanda had been released on bail, the money posted by her parents who lived in Seattle. Within an hour, she had created a new Instagram account and posted a long manipulative statement. "I made mistakes driven by love and jealousy, and I'm getting professional help. I hope someday Tori can forgive me and we can heal together. Mental health struggles are real, and I'm committed to doing the work to become better. Please send prayers and positive energy during this difficult time. Mental health awareness, accountability, and growth. Healing journey." The post had 37 sympathetic comments within 20 minutes. People who didn't know the full story offering support and condemning me for pressing charges instead of showing compassion. Amanda was repositioning herself as a victim of mental illness rather than a perpetrator of calculated crimes. She was hijacking mental health advocacy language to excuse her criminal behavior. I screenshot everything and sent it to the prosecutor's office with a note. "Defendant attempting to manipulate public opinion and create sympathy narrative. This demonstrates consciousness of guilt and strategic thinking. not impaired judgment from mental illness. Friday brought the preliminary hearing where Amanda's attorney argued for reduced charges based on her clean record and alleged mental health crisis. I sat in the courtroom gallery beside my parents and Jessica, watching Amanda perform devastation in a conservative dress with minimal makeup designed to make her look vulnerable and remorseful. She dabbed at her eyes with tissues, her shoulders shaking with theatrical sobs, as her lawyer painted her as a young woman who had made poor choices while struggling with undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Catherine Reeves, systematically destroyed that narrative. She presented the keylogger evidence showing 3 months of premeditated surveillance. She displayed the cloud storage documents containing Amanda's dossier on my life, complete with detailed notes about my schedule, relationships, and vulnerabilities. She showed the draft versions of the fake Instagram messages, proving Amanda had carefully crafted and refined them over weeks. She presented Dylan Rodriguez's statement about similar behavior 2 years prior, establishing a pattern rather than an isolated incident. This was not a crime of passion or impaired judgment, Reeves stated clearly. This was a calculated, sophisticated attack that required technical skills, long-term planning, and sustained deception. The defendant researched methods, acquired tools, executed her plan systematically, and would have succeeded if not for security camera evidence the victim had coincidentally installed. This demonstrates clear intent, premeditation, and consciousness of wrongdoing. The judge, an older woman with steel gray hair and no-nonsense demeanor, reviewed the evidence and denied the motion to reduce charges. The defendant is remanded to trial on all counts. Given the sophisticated nature of the crimes and established pattern of vindictive behavior, bail is revoked pending trial. The gavel came down with finality, as Amanda's theatrical crying became genuine screaming. "No, please, I have a job. I have an apartment. You can't send me to jail." She lunged toward the judge before bailiffs restrained her, her carefully constructed victim performance dissolving into rage that proved exactly what Reeves had argued. Amanda's remorse was performative, not genuine. As they led her away in handcuffs, Amanda's eyes met mine across the courtroom, and what I saw there wasn't regret or shame, but pure hatred. Good, I thought coldly. Let her hate me from a jail cell while she contemplates the consequences of her choices. Outside the courthouse, a small group of reporters had gathered, alerted by the dramatic nature of the case and its social media viral status. I had prepared a statement with Jessica's help. Amanda Walsh committed serious federal crimes against me, including identity theft, computer fraud, and defamation. These were not impulsive mistakes, but calculated attacks executed over months. I'm grateful for law enforcement's thorough investigation and the justice system's recognition that crimes don't become excusable just because the perpetrator claims mental health struggles afterward. Real mental health advocacy doesn't involve using psychiatric terminology to escape accountability for deliberate criminal actions. The statement went viral within hours, shared by domestic violence advocates and cybersecurity experts as an example of how to respond to manipulative public narratives. Several mental health organizations publicly supported my position, clarifying that mental illness doesn't excuse or explain systematic criminal behavior. Amanda's attempt to hijack mental health awareness had backfired, instead educating thousands of people about the difference between genuine psychiatric symptoms and strategic manipulation. Jason texted from yet another new number. "Are you happy now? Amanda is in jail and her life is destroyed. I hope your revenge feels good." I screenshot the message and forwarded it to Reeves, who added it to the witness tampering investigation file. Jason's continued advocacy for Amanda was digging him deeper into potential legal trouble. But the criminal case, satisfying as it was, represented only one dimension of justice. Saturday morning, I executed the second phase. I had spent Friday evening compiling every photo, every text, every email from 8 years of friendship with Amanda. I created a comprehensive timeline showing the pattern of her behavior. Small betrayals when I succeeded at something she wanted. Manufactured drama when my attention wasn't focused on her. Subtle sabotage of my relationships and opportunities. I documented 10 specific instances over 8 years where Amanda had undermined me, each one deniable enough that I had dismissed it as coincidence or accident at the time, but together forming an unmistakable pattern of jealous destruction. I posted the timeline to Medium, titled, "How I Missed 8 Years of Red Flags, a Case Study in Manipulative Friendship." Within 12 hours, it had been read by 50,000 people. Within 24 hours, 100,000. Women began sharing their own stories of toxic friendships in the comments, recognizing their own experiences in my detailed analysis. The article became a resource for identifying manipulation patterns in close relationships. More importantly, Amanda's other friends began reaching out privately. 7 different women contacted me with their own stories of small cruelties and unexplained betrayals at Amanda's hands. Rachel. She told my boyfriend I was cheating on him, completely fabricated, because I got promoted and she didn't. Melissa. She stole my freelance client by telling them I was unreliable, then acted sympathetic when I lost the income. Kendra. She spread rumors that I was using drugs to explain my weight loss, when actually I had been diagnosed with thyroid disease. Each woman had dismissed their individual experience as a misunderstanding or one-time mistake. Together, we had documentation of a decade-long pattern of Amanda systematically harming anyone who threatened her ego or competed for resources she wanted. This wasn't just about what she did to me. This was about exposing a predator who had camouflaged herself as a victim for years. Sunday evening, I received an email from Amanda's mother, Patricia. Tori, I understand you're angry, but please consider that Amanda needs treatment, not punishment. She's my daughter and I love her. Can we meet to discuss this as mothers and daughters who care about family? I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop Monday afternoon, curious what approach she would take. Patricia arrived looking exhausted, clearly devastated by her daughter's arrest. She immediately launched into a plea. Amanda has always struggled with jealousy and insecurity. We got her therapy as a teenager, but she stopped going. She told me you and she were best friends and everything was fine. I had no idea she was capable of something like this. She installed spyware on my computer and monitored my life for 3 months, I said quietly. She fabricated evidence to destroy my wedding and reputation. This wasn't teenage insecurity, Patricia. This was adult criminal behavior. I know. Patricia's hands twisted her coffee cup. But she's my child. What mother can watch her daughter go to prison? Please, if you would just write a letter asking for leniency, explain that you don't want her to do jail time, maybe the judge would be more lenient. I looked at Patricia, this mother begging for mercy for her daughter who had shown me none, and I felt absolutely no pity. Did Amanda tell you what those fake messages claimed? That I was having an affair with my married boss, with explicit details that would have destroyed my professional reputation if anyone believed them? Did she mention that she timed this attack for my wedding day, in front of 300 people, including my mother, who is dying of cancer? Did she explain that she's been sabotaging my life in small ways for 8 years, and this was just the culmination? Patricia's face crumpled. She said it was a mistake made in a moment of heartbreak. It wasn't a moment, I said flatly. It was 3 months of premeditated action. It was years of jealous destruction whenever I had something she wanted. And even now, she's lying to you about what she did. I pulled out my tablet and showed Patricia the forensic evidence, the timeline of Amanda's surveillance, the dossier she had compiled. Your daughter is a calculating predator who uses tears and victim narratives to escape consequences. I will not be writing any letter asking for leniency. I will be providing a victim impact statement at sentencing requesting the maximum penalty. Patricia stared at the evidence, her face going pale as she realized the extent of her daughter's crimes. I didn't know, she whispered. She told me you were being vindictive because Jason chose her. Jason didn't choose her, I corrected. Amanda manipulated him with fabricated evidence and months of psychological grooming. He was a pawn in her game, just like I was. I stood, gathering my things. Your daughter needs to face full consequences for her actions. That's the only thing that might eventually force her to genuine change, though I doubt she's capable of it. Enabling her by asking for mercy will only teach her that crying and playing victim works to escape accountability. As I walked away, Patricia called after me. You're going to regret this hardness in your heart, Tori? Compassion matters. I didn't turn around. Compassion for manipulative criminals who had shown no compassion to their victims wasn't a virtue. It was enabling abuse. The trial was scheduled for October, 4 months away. In the meantime, TechFlow Solutions' corporate investigation revealed that Amanda had accessed confidential client data through my compromised work email, creating potential liability for data breach. The company filed a separate lawsuit against Amanda for damages, corporate espionage, and violation of computer security protocols. The civil suit sought $2 million in damages and legal fees. Amanda's design agency terminated her and filed their own suit after discovering she had used company computers and software to create the fake Instagram evidence, potentially implicating them in her crimes. Her landlord proceeded with eviction after 3 months of unpaid rent, and her belongings were placed in storage when she couldn't pay the fees from jail. Jason lost his job in July. His employer's investigation found that he had shown poor judgment in personal matters that reflects poorly on his professional credibility in cybersecurity. The irony that a man who made his living identifying and preventing computer fraud had been manipulated by such obvious fabrications destroyed his reputation in the industry. He posted a groveling apology on LinkedIn that was mercilessly mocked in cybersecurity forums and became a case study in how personal bias compromises professional judgment. My life, meanwhile, began rebuilding. My mother's cancer treatment showed positive results in June, her tumors shrinking enough that her oncologist used the word remission for the first time. She credited the stress reduction from me not marrying Jason as contributing to her healing, which made us both laugh and cry simultaneously. Work promoted me to senior marketing director with a significant raise after I led a crisis management campaign that turned negative press into a demonstration of corporate values around employee protection and data security. I started dating again in August, casually, taking my time to rebuild trust in my judgment about people. My new therapist specialized in trauma from betrayal and helped me process the complex grief of losing both a fiancé and a best friend simultaneously, while also recognizing I hadn't actually lost anything valuable. You lost illusions, Dr. Martinez explained. You lost your false sense of security about people who never actually deserved your trust. That's painful, but it's not a true loss. It's gaining clarity. The trial in October lasted 3 days. The evidence was overwhelming, and Amanda's defense attorney could only argue for a lighter sentence based on her lack of prior convictions. Amanda herself gave a tearful statement about how she had let jealousy consume her and had made terrible choices, how she was getting therapy in jail and understanding her patterns, how she wanted to make amends and eventually earn forgiveness. The prosecutor asked her directly, if you hadn't been caught, if the victim hadn't had security camera footage proving the timing of the fake messages, would you have stopped your campaign against her? Amanda hesitated just long enough to reveal the truth before claiming she would have confessed eventually. Nobody believed her. My victim impact statement was 3 pages long and detailed every way Amanda's actions had harmed me. The public humiliation, the violation of privacy, the destruction of trust, the exploitation of my mother's illness, the damage to my professional reputation that required months of crisis management to repair. I described the nightmares, the anxiety about technology and security, the difficulty trusting new people. I looked directly at Amanda as I read. The defendant spent 8 years pretending to be my best friend, while systematically undermining my happiness. She used my vulnerabilities against me and showed no remorse until facing consequences. She has learned nothing except to be a better liar and manipulator. I request the maximum sentence to protect other potential victims from her calculated cruelty. The jury found Amanda guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 5 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. TechFlow's civil suit resulted in a judgment of $1.8 million that Amanda would be paying off for the rest of her life. Her design career was effectively over. Her professional reputation destroyed by the public nature of her crimes and the ethical violations they represented. Jason sent one final message before I permanently blocked every possible avenue of contact. I hope you're satisfied. You destroyed 2 lives because you couldn't forgive human weakness. I didn't respond, but I thought, I didn't destroy anything. I simply refused to protect criminals from the consequences of their choices. 2 years after the wedding that never happened, I stood in a different church wearing a different dress. This ceremony was intimate. Just 50 guests. People who had proven their loyalty and love through actions rather than words. My mother sat in the front row, healthy and vibrant, her hair grown back silver and short after completing treatment. She had been cancer-free for 18 months, her prognosis excellent. My father walked me down the aisle toward Marcus, my new fiancé, a man I had met through the support group for family members of cancer patients. Marcus had been there with his sister through her treatment, had understood my trauma around trust and betrayal, had moved at my pace through a careful courtship, built on transparency and respect. He worked in nonprofit management, shared my values about integrity and accountability, and had witnessed enough of life's hardships to appreciate genuine connection over performative romance. When he proposed, it was private and thoughtful, and I said yes without hesitation or fear. Amanda was 18 months into her prison sentence. According to the occasional updates from my father's law enforcement contacts, she had been written up multiple times for manipulating other inmates and attempting to orchestrate drama. She had been denied early release twice for failure to demonstrate genuine rehabilitation. Her parents had stopped visiting after Patricia finally acknowledged that her daughter's problems went far deeper than situational mental health struggles. Amanda's future held supervised release, massive debt, a felony record, and a destroyed reputation that would follow her forever. Jason had moved to a different state, taking a significant pay cut at a small company that didn't Google potential employees as thoroughly. His LinkedIn profile was sparse, his career trajectory permanently damaged. He had tried to reach out on the first anniversary of the church disaster, a long email about how he had learned and grown and hoped I could someday forgive him. I had deleted it without finishing. His learning and growth were not my concern or responsibility. My Medium article about toxic friendship patterns had been expanded into a book published 6 months ago, The Best Friend I Never Had, Recognizing and Recovering from Manipulative Relationships. It had sold 30,000 copies and sparked a national conversation about covert abuse in same-gender friendships. I donated all proceeds to organizations supporting victims of cybercrime and identity theft. Amanda's crimes had given me a platform to help thousands of people recognize similar patterns in their own lives. At the reception, held at the same waterfront venue where I had celebrated my escape 2 years earlier, Jessica gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. I met Tori in college, and even then she had terrible taste in friends but excellent judgment about what mattered. She lost a fake friend and a weak fiancé, but gained clarity, strength, and eventually this partnership with Marcus that shows us all what real love looks like. To Tori, who taught me that the best revenge is living well and pressing charges. Later that evening, slow dancing with my husband while my mother watched with joyful tears and my father beamed with pride, I thought about Amanda in her prison cell and Jason in his diminished life. I felt no guilt, no regret, no second thoughts about the consequences I had pursued so relentlessly. They had both made choices that revealed their character, and I had simply ensured they faced appropriate accountability. The Instagram account that had been used to create fake messages was permanently suspended, ironically for violating terms of service against harassment and impersonation. The church where my public humiliation had occurred sent a formal apology and a full refund, their reputation temporarily damaged by hosting such a scene. The 300 guests who had witnessed my almost wedding became 300 witnesses who spread the story of what happens when someone tries to destroy an innocent person. They destroy themselves instead. My life now was built on foundations of verified trust, transparent communication, and mutual respect. I had learned to recognize red flags early, to trust my instincts, to prioritize character over charisma. I had surrounded myself with people who had proven their loyalty through consistent actions over time, not dramatic gestures or emotional manipulation. As Marcus and I left for our honeymoon in Italy, my mother pulled me aside for one last hug. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, "not just for surviving, but for refusing to let cruelty be rewarded with mercy it didn't earn. You protected yourself and potentially dozens of future victims. That's not revenge, baby. That's justice." She was right. Amanda and Jason had gambled that I would be too nice, too forgiving, too concerned with being the bigger person to hold them fully accountable. They had fundamentally misunderstood who I was. I was my father's daughter, raised to believe actions have consequences. I was my mother's daughter, taught that strength includes standing up to people who hurt you. I was a woman who had learned that real compassion sometimes looks like letting people face exactly what they've earned. The plane lifted off toward new adventures, leaving behind the wreckage of what Amanda and Jason had tried to destroy. They had intended to ruin my life and instead had ruined their own. That wasn't my doing. That was simply cause and effect, karma, the natural consequence of attacking someone who refused to be a victim. And I had no regrets whatsoever about helping that karma along its way.